Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our fourth session. I can't believe this is flying by so quickly. I'll let people come in there now. So again, like the previous sessions we've had, we're trying to keep this kind of short and sweet, and we'll follow up with a good bit of information afterwards, because we know people like to kind of process and then come back. And then, oops, daisy. Actually, do you know what? I might stop sharing that way because it might make life a bit awkward. So we will follow up afterwards with our information that we share today, and there'll be information in there about the different funding streams, how you go about getting on all of these kind of contact lists and different things. And we imagine for the attendees here today, there's probably many people who've had success in multiple different funding streams. So, feel free to share if there's anything that we're kind of missing today. Absolutely feel free to put it in the chat, or maybe when we come to the questions at the end, or hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to have a proper discussion. You can join in there, basically just, because this is the thing, it's almost, for committees, it's almost a job to find funding, and we want to make it as easy as possible for people. So we will be covering funding today. So that's the grants and the different funding people might apply for. And then next week, we'll be covering the match funding for household improvements. So that would be, your banks, your credit unions, your post office, those kind of things. And then on the 8th, we're going to be working, we're going to have Clan Credo and Community Finance Ireland join us. And they are the providers of finance for community projects. And we hope as well to have the credit unions join us, because they are involved in that as well. So if anyone can't hear me, or might just we might just stop sharing for a minute, and if anyone is having difficulty hearing or seeing, my colleague Michael Dean is on the call, and he can, if you want to send him a message on the chat, he can check in with you and see how everything is working. But it should be that people can hear and see. If anyone wants to switch on the camera and give me a thumbs up, that would make me feel a lot better. Oh, good man, Richard. Good stuff. Oh, excellent, Vicky. Thank you so much. That's great. So we'll go through the presentation that we have, and then we'll have a good opportunity to have a chat at the end. I'm hoping we'll have Pascal O'Connor join us from Waterfront Leader Partnership, and he'll be talking about that particular funding stream, which many people might be familiar with. But we'll start off the presentation anyway. We'll see how we'll have people join us as we go along. So we're on, as I said, we're on the fourth one, and they're the next ones to come: the match funding for the housing upgrades and the match funding for the community projects. Anyone who is registered for today will have access to the recording, and feel free to share this with your counterparts in the committees that you're in. And as I say, we'll have a sheet that we'll send around afterwards, like an information sheet, just to kind of give links and contacts and all that for funding. So today's agenda is we're going to have an introduction, kind of talk about why we're looking at these things. We're going to talk about the personal grants, so that's the grants for your home. And then we'll go on to the community grants. And this is like a double bill. You'd be sick of listening to me. But luckily we have Pascal joining us from Leader, and I just see he's joined the call there. And then we have a question and answer session at the end, and we'll keep it nice and snappy. So as it's interesting to see, we're on our fourth week of this, so people are used to muting the microphones. You're welcome to switch the camera on, but just kind of sometimes it's can be distracting. So, feel free to switch your camera off if you're not speaking. And then we'll use the chat box. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, you'll have a little kind of bubble, and then that, you can write your chat into that, and we'll be recording this. And if it is that you have a question or something that you want to discuss at the end and you don't want that in the recording, let us know and we'll edit that out. But other than that, it'll go on our YouTube channel, and it'll basically be a resource for other communities to use. And we found it very useful recently with the Callan community group last week, and Ithel in Waterfront the week before, that we will take out their experiences and we'll put them up on our YouTube. So we want to have, over time, we want to have many examples from communities across the Southeast that basically people will be able to learn from. So I might just stop sharing there for a second, just so we can all kind of get our heads around the challenge. So this is the one I always use, and I imagine people have already seen me do this before. So if we think about all of our carbon emissions, so the fuel that we use for our homes, the fuel that we use for transport, the fuel that we use in the items that we own, and all of these different things that have carbon emissions, they're represented by the sheet here. And the challenge is, in the next 10 years, we need to halve that. And then in the next 10 years after that, we need to go again. And then by the time we get to 2050, which is not that long away, we need to have a tiny amount of carbon emissions. And how we're going to do that is we're going to make our homes and our community buildings and our transport, we're going to make it as efficient as we can. And then we're also going to bring in renewable energy there where we can. And the challenge is often, when you look at the politics of this, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but people say, oh, it's going to cost us so much and it's going to cost us so much. Yes, it will cost us. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about funding, but there's also a cost in not making a change. So if you think about our fuel costs at the moment, and if we take, maybe a rural example there, that 200 meter square detached house, and if we're looking at the B rating, which is what the government are aiming us for, our energy cost would be $1,500 a year, which is a lot of money. But still, if you compare that to a house that was maybe built 15, 20 years ago, you're looking at double, if not triple, the money, or quadruple, I should say. So it is a big cost to people to maintain homes. And unfortunately, with heating costs, that's just going up. So for ourselves, it is a big thing to invest in these things, but this is where we have the grants and the funding that are there to help, because really people can't do it on their own. So as I say, we have a big challenge, because if you see on the top graph there, the vast majority of our homes are built before the year 2000. And they're homes and community buildings that, are not as energy efficient as they could be. And I have kind of basically there the rough breakdown as to what the building energy rating of those kind of age of houses would be. And then the second challenge in our communities is, are our community buildings being used effectively? Because if they're not comfortable and they're not welcoming, people won't use them. So there's the challenge of upgrading our homes and making them energy efficient and reducing our energy costs. And then there's also the challenge of our community buildings. So we'll break that down into two things today. So keeping up with funding halls, we know it's a challenge, but there's help there through your county mentor. Is there, and there's our county mentors for across the region, which I imagine many will be familiar with. Whoops, Daisy, at this stage. And then we have the public participation networks. So I will share the information afterwards as to how you join your public participation network. But your public participation network, PPNs, are facilities in your local council that your council uses to kind of share funds that they have, or opportunities, or even your community group could be advising your local council or putting input into policy or different things like that. So you have your county mentors, you have your PPN, and I say I use that a lot, even myself. And then finally, and I forgot to include it on the slide, but of course Pascal will be talking later, your local leader company is a great resource as well for funding information. So between us all, we will keep people up to date, because there is the thing of deadlines, when stuff is coming out, what changes there are. We know it's a lot, so we want to make it as straightforward as possible for you. So if we go on to housing. So I mentioned these the last day in the, or well, my colleague Colm did when he was talking about home upgrades. There are 3 separate schemes for funding for households. The first scheme is the Warmer Home Scheme, and that is free upgrades for households on social welfare. There is unfortunately a bit of a delay at the moment. Well, when I say a bit of a delay, 18 months to a 2-year delay on these schemes because of getting contractors and COVID and stuff. But we, as a community group, that's a great first action. If you wanted to even just print out a few of the application forms and put them in a central area and maybe offer to help people with the application form, that people would be on that list to get those upgrades. And if you have people in your community, and this is all done through the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, SEAI. If you have people in your community who have already availed of that scheme and they think maybe now that it's not open to them again, people can go back again a few times if they like to do different upgrades, because we know as time goes on, houses can, slight parts can maybe degrade and it mightn't be as efficient as possible. So people can, that's one of the changes this year, they can go back if they want to. So that's people on social welfare, and possibly the biggest indicator for that is if you're a recipient of the fuel allowance, you're more than likely eligible for the Warmer Home Scheme. And then we have the individual grants that people might be familiar with. So again, these go through SEAI, and we will include the link to that afterwards on our information sheet. These are if you would like to upgrade your house bit by bit. So you get the grant maybe for the installation, and then you get the BER afterwards to prove the impact. And then you might go back again in a few years and get a heat pump or whatever it is. So, it's really if you would like to do 1 or 2 actions in the next while and, to improve the energy efficiency of your building. And how you do it is you go through the SEI website, you apply for the funding or you apply for the grant. You then find a local supplier who does the work, and they will do the work and verify the savings. And then you go back to SEI with your evidence, and SEI will refund the amount that you paid for through, or a certain amount through the grant. So with SEI, all grants are retrospective, and I'll talk about that with the one-stop shop and the community energy grants as well, because there's ways to provide the funding, the bridge funding, to help people, so people don't need to have all of the money up front. But in the individual grants, it would be that you would pay for the whole thing and then get your grant afterwards. And that is for insulation, heat pumps, solar, both types of solar for heating and for electric, and then electric car chargers. And there's other things as well that you can avail of, and you can avail of a certain amount of grant towards the building energy rating that you get after to verify the savings. And then, of course, with all these things, I think it's always useful to mention, yes, there's a cost up front, but ultimately there's been lots of research on this, that houses are worth more when you do this work. So long term, you get the energy saving, but you also get the improvement in the value of your home. So the third way is the one-stop shop, and this is the one that we were talking about recently, where if a household is doing all of the works at one time to get your house up to B2 or higher. So you're doing your insulation and your floor on, well, maybe not your floor, but you might be doing it on your roof, on your walls. You might be installing an air source heat pump. You might be, looking at solar. You might be doing all of these multiple different ways of doing it. You might be replacing windows or doors or whatever it is, whatever it's going to take to get your house to be as energy efficient as you can get it. And the idea is that you would do it all together, and you would have all the works done, and you would get up to, well, actually, I'm probably being a bit conservative there. According to the government, they maintain, you know, you can get almost up to 50% of the cost, but it depends on what you do in the grant. So there's set amounts. And again, I will include the link to this on the information sheet afterwards. There's set amounts that you get for each action, and they are all combined together to get to get your final grant at the end. And this particular approach requires you to do this fabric first. So basically, you look at making the building as energy efficient as possible, and then you then can look at renewable energy or you know, whatever heating system you have. So you look at heating controls or insulation or windows and doors first, and then you look at the other things, because you know you're making that energy saving first, and then it's a lot easier to power those to use the renewable energy. And then I'll just mention here that a number of one-stop shops, 3CA included, they can provide bridge funding. So basically they can help you to, you know, that they would claim back the grant and keep a hold of the grant, but that you would only pay, you know, the amount that you're paying without the grant. So that is our personal grant. And I'll just mention this as well, because as community groups, you will be interested to know about energy credits. And energy credits is something they're not often talked about, because it's kind of hard to kind of say for definite how much in energy credits a community would get, because or a household even, because it's based on your energy savings. But there is a value to energy companies in the saving that you make in energy, in either a home upgrade or in upgrading your community buildings, or in upgrading a business, or any of these different things. And when, you know, say if you're with 3CA and we do the work for you, we will go then and negotiate a very good rate of an energy credit for you, that you would get a certain amount of money back once all the project is done. So it's a good thing to bear in mind. And if it is you're managing a project, you know, kind of working with different people, always ask that question: is what's the situation with regards energy credits? Who negotiates that? You know, and as an individual, you can actually go and negotiate with your energy company to get energy credits. But if companies like one-stop shops like 3CA we're going with many projects, so basically it's easier for us to get the higher value. So there's value in making an energy saving, and that's something that people can often forget to calculate in, because it's, you know, you're not necessarily sure what the energy saving will be until you get to the end. So we'll move on to community grants, and there's I always think it's interesting to think about, and actually we might just stop there for a second and just see from the groups here. Whoops, it is. Oh, sugar, I can't seem to stop the screen. No, I can't. No, listen, oh, sugar. Right, so applying for grants is a science in itself. But as I say, 3CA, your county mentors, all of these groups are here to help you access that money. So the pros are that you can avail of a grant, and if you're good at applying for grants, you know, there's communities that we work with who are very good at applying for grants, and once they kind of gone through it once or twice, you get to know what the grants are looking for generally, because it's all about how, you know, kind of how robust your system is to make sure that the money is spent well and accounted for and all that kind of thing, because these are often public money. So we need to be able to be sure that it's been spent in the right way. So once you've done it a few times, you're golden. You can, you know how to do it. It's great for your community group, you know, or for your community, wider community, to see that you're achieving things by accessing grants and winning funding. And you know, that they can see the benefits of being involved in this in these efforts. But then the difficult things is that, you know, you might need experience writing grants. You need to be very specific about the way you're going to spend the money, and each different funding stream has different requirements, and you have to get familiar with that. And then, you know, you always have to be kind of planning ahead. with your community group to access more grants. But there is a lot more coming on stream now. So, and these are some of the things that I will share today. And Pascal can share about how it is working out for them. And I might just ask Michael there to launch the poll, if you can, about applying for funding. Excellent. So I'll leave that up there. Apologies, people had said to us that maybe the polls weren't up for long enough, so we'll leave them up for a few more, a small while. And I would ask, if you have answered other in that question, would you mind popping in the chat what funding stream you went for? Because these are the main ones that we would be working with communities to apply with, but there may be others that we are good for communities to go for, and it would be useful to share. So I'll leave it there. So once we get to maybe 15 or so responses, we'll share. That's fine. So do you want to stop the poll there? Yeah, and then share the results there, Michael, if you don't mind. So we have a good few people who haven't applied before, which is good, because hopefully we'll take a little bit of the pain out of that. The Town and Village Renewal, a great fund. Again, I'm kind of looking out for the dates as to when they're out at the moment. SEI. SEI funds are great funds, and I would say to people, if they have applied before and maybe found things to be a bit complicated, SEI, in fairness, are really streamlining the process. So the way you may have applied before may be slightly different now, and the idea is to make it as easy as possible. And we have people who've applied for leader funding, and then we have other. So yeah, so if anyone has a chance to put in the chat if they've applied for other groups that we haven't come across. So we'll head back to the presentation. So the first thing I would say, great. The first thing I would say is, actually, I might just ask Michael, did that share? No, well, we don't know. Michael Dean? No?
Sorry? Yeah, we can see that.
It was all fine. Okay, that's good. Because sometimes some things come up on my screen that don't come up. So the first step we would really recommend, and this is something that you can work on with your county mentor, is having a good governance structure. So, being organised as a group, kind of having good resources, having a constitution, all these different things. Well, it depends on the groups, but one place that we would really recommend that people are able to get any resources and support that they might need, or guidance, is the Wheel. So the Wheel is the government's voluntary organisation, and there's resources there that you can work through with your county mentor, and it can be about everything from finances to how you fundraise, to the different risks and things. So but as I say, county mentor is there to work with you through those. So no matter what fund you're going for, you need to have good governance. And then I might just ask Michael there, if you just launch that second poll about how do you find out about funding. So if people wouldn't mind, this is half the thing, I think, is to actually know when stuff is coming out and when the deadlines are and who to apply for. And I know that the Wheel itself, Community Foundation Ireland, different groups like that, they all have their own newsletters as well for their particular funding. But again, I would say that the PPN is a great resource for gathering multiple different funding streams, and you'll be able to, in one newsletter, for Wexford, Waterford, Carlow or Kilkenny, you'll be able to find at least 2 or 3 funding streams, depending on what your interest is going to be. So I'll just finish that up there. So that's good to know. People do use the PPN. It's great. 3CA have been useful. That's great to hear. Funding newsletters that people avail of. And then there's other that maybe we might come to in the chat. And I see people have shared. There's a chat there. And then I'll stop sharing. Okay, so it's all these different sources of funding. So we'll just go through some of these different things. So we do have grants that are administered through the council. The Environmental Action Fund is that each council has they may have a different name on it, but that's for any awareness and training and projects that people might want to do. You're looking at value projects of maybe up to €500 to €1,000, and that's a funding stream for people. And you have town and village renewal, not strictly energy focused, but we would say that if you are doing an upgrade of a building, by planning permission anyway, if you're doing over a certain size, you have to make sure energy efficiency is taken into account. But anything where you are upgrading buildings for better use, definitely it's good to involve energy efficiency in that. And then coming soon, which will be in April, it's very exciting. So we're going to have through the council again, it'll be a fund through Pubble, climate action funding. So it'll be for energy, transport, food, waste, or environmental awareness projects. So they're set to be quite generous funds. I think we're looking in the thousands rather than in the hundreds. And your county mentor would be happy to work with you to identify projects. So I just like to say, if anyone's in Kilkenny County Council have just brought out a really good grants booklet. Carlow have one as well, more about the guidance of how to go through for the funds and the different funds that will come up. So it's kind of gives you a timeline roughly. And then all of this information is also available on the Public Participation Network. And in the different counties, you would have emails that people might get every week or every 2 or 3 weeks or even once a month, which would have updates on it. And I might just see actually, since we're on this topic, actually, yeah, so I will go back to those questions near the end, because they're not necessarily related to what we're talking about here, which is the council stuff. And I would recommend the Public Participation Network, because there's lots of, I know when we're talking about the retrofitting and different things like that, they look like very big projects, and they are sizable projects, but you get a lot of support to deliver them. But there's a lot that can be achieved with smaller amounts of money, but can be visible to the community and can kind of get that buy-in from the community that maybe you might want to look at. So like even for the public climate action funding, you might have communities might apply for funding for an electric vehicle charger. They might apply for funding for cycle infrastructure. They might go for any of these different things. So that's the grants administered through the council. A new source of income that is going to be coming online in the next year is community benefit funds. And 3CA and your county mentors will let you know when these are coming on stream. So if you see the little dots on the screen, they are renewable energy projects that were approved a year and a half ago. So if those renewable projects come to fruition, they would have a community benefit fund. So for all of the power that they produce, they need to basically recompense the community for, to basically help the community develop as well. So it's that renewables energy is of benefit to the community as well. So if we're looking at a solar farm, a small solar farm, you're looking at 25 acres. There's a good few of those in Wexford, actually, I see on the map. And they would have a community benefit fund for the local community of about €10,000 a year. And it would be that the community would apply for that money. So as I say, this is all being worked out at the moment. There are some projects that have gone up on the SEI register. I believe there's one in Wexford Rosspile, which is a wind farm. And then there is others across the country. So there, when those come on stream and those funds start to be administered we'll be sure to let our communities know, because it may be a good source of regular income so that a community could start planning ahead, and that it's guaranteed, not guaranteed funding, because of course everyone has to apply for the funding, but it's an option for communities. And then we have the Community Energy Grant, which was formerly known as Better Energy Communities. And I imagine the people who went for funding through SEI probably went through this fund. So I might just ask Michael if you could share in the chat that we have an event coming up. There's one tomorrow, but then there's one in March as well, which is particularly about this fund. So this fund is administered by 3CA in the Southeast. So it's a combination grant. So we want to get businesses, we want to get community groups, we want to get housing associations, all of these different groups onto an application, and then we submit that to SEI. And it's judged based on the amount of savings that will be, the value for money for the state. But there is a 50% funding for community projects on this this program, and 30% for business. And for community, if a community has a community hall which might have a shop or a creche in it, that classifies as a business. So it still would be 30%. And again, we're looking at fabric first here. So can we upgrade the building fabric to be more energy efficient? And then we'll have, the good thing about this in the last year is that we will have multiple calls each year. So it used to be that we had one call in the year and we had to get all the projects done in that time, and it was hectic. And basically, if you missed that year, you would have to wait another year. So for us now, we want to have applications going in with community projects on them every few months. And we're expecting the announcement on the rules for this fund in the next few weeks, and that's why we're running the webinars, the one that Michael shared the link on. And to avail of the funding, to identify your project, really you need an energy assessment of your building and or your business. And we have a free audit program at the moment for, well, free, or depending on the size of the project, it might be low cost for community buildings. And I'll share the links in that in the follow-up so that you'll be able to avail of an audit. And then, there's the same funding or a similar funding is available for businesses. So if businesses spend over 10,000 euros a year, they can avail of a grant that will give them their audit that can send them on forward for their funding. So the example there is, Listanley Parish, which they had upgraded lights, and they had looked at their boiler, and they'd done their roof insulation, and the rules are slightly changed on that at the moment. That it used to be years ago that people would do lighting only, and that isn't really allowed anymore. It has to be part of the building upgrade as in general. But it's a sizable grant, 23,000, and that they were able to make that building more energy efficient in with half the cost. And the thing as well is that all of these buildings, I know I've spoken to people in Kilteely Hall, in Wexford and other places, the buildings get used a lot more as a result because they are more comfortable. So we'll be putting a call out for this. Communities who who have completed their energy master plan are able to, are at an advantage when it comes to this fund, because they get more points in the application process. But still, all communities are welcome to apply for it. And as I say, we'll be running webinars, and Michael has shared the link there. So that is one really good option for communities. And that is where SEI sees a lot of sustainable energy communities projects going. So they'd go in with all of these other applications for a county, county suite of projects that will be delivered. And then this is just an example here is again the Monagear Parish. So they insulated the roof, they filled cavity wall with EcoBead, they replaced single glazing windows, they replaced external doors, and they got 50% of the grant. and there's the payback there, but also let's focus as well on how much more comfortable that hall is now and how better used it is. So I imagine with this, you're kind of thinking, oh my God, how do I even identify projects? But one of the ways that you can identify projects, and this comes through funding as well, is that you can apply to complete an energy master plan. So those of you who are on the Sustainable Energy Community Programme have probably spoken to your county mentors about an energy master plan. It's a fully funded study of your community to map out where the best investments are. A certain number of representative homes in your community get assessed, a certain number of businesses, a certain number of community buildings, and then from that, and also from a renewable energy assessment, you get an energy master plan, which basically would have all of the opportunities for your community. And then we also have, we're very blessed in the Southeast to have that the community gets the funding. Again, as in with SEI, all the funding is retrospective. So in Wexford, in Carlow, and in Kilkenny, and in Waterford, it's currently been worked out that the local council, or in the case in Carlow, the Leader company, Carlow County Development Partnership, they provide the funding, they pay the consultants in partnership with the community, and then they claim back the funding through SEI. So that study and that plan is of no cost to your community. So that is, and I forgot to mention about renewable energy projects. So we have people on the call here who are actually developing their own renewable energy projects. And they are, what I'm talking about here is 0.5 megawatts to 5 megawatts. So it's the equivalent of the larger is of, just over 2 wind turbines, or in the case of a solar farm, it might be 25 acres. So there is supports in planning. So they will have a framework where communities will be able to apply to have the planning studies and the different things that they need to do for developing their project. That will be done with consultants on behalf of consultants. And then there's capital funding that is under discussion at the moment, but there will be support for communities to do that. And I know we're particularly in the Southeast, we're kind of waiting, but apparently these are going to be all sorted in the next few months, which is good, because then communities will be able to progress with a community energy project without having to worry about, how are we going to source this funding. But I would say there are communities that we've worked with. Michael in County Carlow, they developed a feasibility study with funding from Leader. So yes, SEI are a source of funding and a source of support for renewable energy projects, but they're not the only ones. So do consider that if you're thinking about renewable energy project. So I might actually just hand over to Pascal then. I know that was a whistle stop tour, guys, but Pascal, if you want to speak to us about Leader, I think can you hear me?
Sorry, can you see me now?
No, I can't see you, Pascal, actually, strangely. Oh no, you're coming up on the screen here now. So I'd just like to introduce Pascal. Pascal has recently joined the Waterfront Leader, and he's going to speak to us about their programs.
No, hang on, bear with me for 1 second.
Okay.
As I try and get this up. Let's see here. Can you see that on the screen? Yeah.
I think it'll come up in a second, Pascal, but it doesn't seem to be coming there now.
No, is that not sharing?
No. Michael is Pascal is a co-host, isn't he? Michael Dean.
Yeah, he's a co-host. It should
be shown. Share. Do you want to? Is it saying it's sharing?
I can't. Okay. Yeah, it's telling me it's sharing. 1 second. I'll try and
Okay. You should be able to share there. And I assume, Michael Dean, you're not seeing that either, are you? No. Oh, here we go. Wonderful.
Yeah, here we go.
I don't
know what was wrong there, but
everyone's not sure.
Welcome. Yeah, we got through it. Listen, thanks for having me, Grania. So, as Grania said, I'm from Waterfront Leadership Partnership. I'm the new Circular Economy and Sustainability Project Officer with Waterfront Leader partnership. It's a brand new position, obviously, something they haven't actually had before, and I believe I'm actually the first in the country to hold this position. Hopefully not the last, so hopefully it'll spread out. Now, for those who don't know about the Leader program, it was actually established by the European Commission in '91 and is aimed at developing rural communities. The concept relies on bottom-up development, though. So, in other words, like I can guide projects, help applications, and provide advice, but it's really down to the applicants to really drive the projects forward and push for what they want. You know, the funding decisions are made by local action groups and an evaluation committee, which is outside the Waterfront Leader Partnership organisation. So I can't influence the funding committee. I can just present the projects to them, tell them whether I think it'll be successful or not based on the criteria we're going to set forth. Each program will have slightly different guidelines as well, but all are orientated around community development. We don't provide funding for sort of households. It's solely towards organizations such as like businesses, charities, social enterprises, community groups, really anything along those lines. Could be sports halls. You know, one of our recent examples is we're doing up the bathrooms in a sports hall, a community hall, just to refit all the pipes, retrofit all the piping, stuff like that. So the last Leader program was actually the Transitional Leader program, which lasted from 2020 to 2022. The aims of this were obviously develop rural communities, promote projects which support communities post-COVID-19, as well as support job creation, entrepreneurship, innovation post both COVID-19 and Brexit. It was also to develop the digital economy in rural areas. So thankfully, I'm actually working from home today, so that's down to development of the digital economy, you know, that type of stuff. We wouldn't be able to work from home otherwise. And that could either be through education or literal facility development, such as broadband, you know. It was also to develop projects in thematic areas, which are likely to feature strongly in the next round of the Leader program, such as climate change, sustainability, biodiversity, digital transformation, and the smart village concept. So that's why I have a job, is because we're developing areas such as climate change and sustainability. And this is now where my new role comes into play. So as I said, I'm the only project officer in that area. We also brought on board Kieran Cody, who's the biodiversity project officer. So he'll work along things very similar to my own area, but he's more aimed at wildlife, native resources, stuff like that, the bioeconomy. But I imagine him and myself will be working very close together. If projects link between the two, we'll work together on those as well, you know. So here's the timetable for applications. It's going to be a very rough idea for a timetable, just because we actually are still in the Transitional Leader program, and we've stopped taking applications for that. So we're just providing funding and assessments for projects at the moment. So we do not know yet how much funding we'll be getting in the next program. It will be roughly along the same lines, somewhere between probably 1.5 to 2 million. Won't all be available to myself, obviously, but throughout the Waterfront Leader Partnership program, but it will be in that area. But we don't know an exact figure or when the exact guidelines will be in place. The timetable will also vary depending on the project type. Generally, capital projects will take a bit longer, you know, than others. Education and stuff like that, they're generally a bit quicker. You know, we can get someone educated a lot quicker than we can get them to build a house, for example. But in general, the process of applications takes up to about 4 to 5 months, as made up of about 2 stages. The first stage is literally just an expression of interest with a short 2-page form. So we'll announce a project, and during a specified time frame, you'll have to express interest before you can be guaranteed funding. So they have to be given, expression of interest have to be given during a specified time period, which is usually about a week. Once this has happened, we can then move on to the next stage, which involves an application form. It's very detailed and no work should commence until approval has been given. Once the applications have come in, they would be hypothetically recommended for funding, then progress to the LCDC. Once they're approved, they're issued with a letter of offer, and then the payments are made in arrears once an assessment of the project has been undertaken by the project officer. So, for example, we would never commence the project until we have given you a letter of offer. If the project commences before then, we may not be able to give you the funding. So I would always recommend to wait until you literally have that letter in your hand before you actually start. And then you won't actually get paid the funding in arrears until an assessment has been carried out by the project officer you apply through. So if it was for me, for example, and I funded you for 20 solar panels, say on a community hall, I cannot provide funding until I go assess those solar panels to state that are the exact solar panels that we provided you funding for and the exact amount. So if you get 21 or 18 solar panels, I can't provide you a funding just in case. So always keep that in mind when going through the leader program, is that it has to be specific to what we agreed upon during the application process. Moving forward, so right now, because we're coming to the end of the transitional leader program, I'm actually currently writing the framework for the next leader program based around sustainability and the circular economy. This is aimed at the next leader program and beyond, but I hope to really target the needs and wants of the communities here in Waterford. There's no point in me writing something up that nobody actually wants to follow or has a necessity for. To that end, I'm talking to people and surveying as many people as possible. I can post a link to the survey in the chat below if anyone has a couple of minutes and they want to fill it out. My email is actually on the screen here, so it's pascal.o'connor@waterfordleaderpartnership.ie. If anyone likes to get in touch with any questions at all whatsoever. So just to quickly summarize, I know this was a very short and sweet presentation, and I apologize that I can't actually provide as much detail as Grania can, just because we're in the end of the transitional leader program. Application process about 4 to 5 months, mainly aimed at community halls, retrofits, stuff like that in the past, but we're trying to move towards more circular economy and sustainability stuff now. And yeah, so that's my email there. Thanks, guys. Sorry about the quick, short and sweet.
No, this is a great introduction, and thank you, Pascal. And I think what Pascal is saying there about finding, kind of working out what way it's going to work, that's happening in each county now at this stage, that they're all, have had their transitional funds and have been applying. So thank you, Pascal. And I would recommend, I found my own leader companies in Kilkenny to be a great resource, and actually we've worked with Waterford as well, and Wexford, and we've started working with Carlos. So there's great assistance there. And one thing Pascal said there, which I actually appreciate him saying, because it's the same for SEI. If you specify on your project that you are having this type of solar panel or this type of insulation or whatever it is, on SEI, it's the exact same, that you have to have what you plan for. So that's something for communities to bear in mind and just kind of to keep an eye on. So thank you, Pascal. I think you'll definitely have people touching base with you, and definitely we will as well, because it's very interesting to be developing a new kind of criteria as such. So I will just go very quickly, and apologies, it was me who ran over time. So Tom has asked, does a deep retrofit necessarily mean losing enclosed solid wood stoves? No, it doesn't, Tom. I think there may be some cases where people, to get up to the, maybe people who are at the higher end of the building energy rating, may remove stoves to get to the A2 or whatever it is, but mostly if it's an efficient enough system, I'd say it'll be fine. And really it's up to you as a householder. You choose, you get options, and you get the options that'll get you to a B2, and then you can kind of decide on what it is. But it's an interesting question, because it may be, as we build in the future and we're looking at more energy efficient, we may not have stoves. So it's kind of a very strong cultural thing, isn't it, that we have a stove and we get around it, whatever, and what does that mean in the future where maybe we don't. But in general, I would say, Tom, no, I would say if it's an efficient enough system, it should be able to go alongside anything that's planned. So Rob, you were asking there, and actually BFC, I didn't really understand your question there. I think you might have typed something, but if you want to type it in. Rob, you said about the waiting list for SEI grants. So no, I would say the paperwork is more streamlined than it was. It is digital applications. There is digital applications. So I will address the first thing first. So there is a waiting list for the Warmer Home Scheme, which is the scheme, the free scheme for people who are on, social welfare. So there is that project, and that is purely down to COVID. But I believe that because they weren't allowed to go into people's houses, and often a lot of people who were on fuel allowance may be vulnerable people when it comes to health or whatever. So it wasn't allowed. So essentially they just shut down the program for a year or a year and a half, or whatever it was. So there is a backlog there. So there is a backlog on that, but the government have committed to allocating more resources to that. So hopefully it'll get quicker. The paperwork is so much better than it was. Or sorry, well, it's a lot more straightforward. You can apply digitally. With the Warmer Home Scheme, often it is that's the social welfare scheme I mentioned. It's a printed form. You can sign it and print it off. I'd be happy to share the link to that for all the community groups on. You know, so that is something that has been remedied, much more straightforward to applications. If you have the individual grants, very straightforward. You know, 5 minutes of an application online. You give your MPRN number, so your identifier for your house when it comes to your electricity. You give your postcode. You basically line up exactly what you want to do. I think you might have to have your building energy rating, but it's very straightforward. And then when it comes to the one-stop shop, all of the paperwork is handled by the one-stop shop you're with. So if you go with 3CA, it's all, you know, we do all that paperwork. So that takes the pain out of it for you. So upfront costs, I would say if someone is doing the one-stop shop, the upfront cost that they'll have at the start is the energy assessment. And I might have the figure wrong, but I think that's maybe 300 or 400 euros. And that is basically to lay out exactly how everything will be done. And then everything else is included in the amount of money that will get the grant towards it. So, and then the final thing, solar tiles qualify. So there is a list on the SEI website of eligible technology. I couldn't say for definite if solar tiles are in that. I imagine they are. I know the solar tiles are not as efficient as solar panels. So, you know, it'll be more expensive for you. But yeah, no, I imagine they're on there if they're good technology and they're making the savings. So Pascal shared the link to the survey. And if no one else has any questions, I think we'll finish it up there. And I'll just, what did I have on the slide? So the last thing that I'd say to you is your county mentor is there to speak to you about your options. We do have that grant webinar coming up, and we'll have a recording of that. So even if you can't make it on the day, you know, do sign up and you'll get the recording afterwards. Your public participation network is a great resource. And again, I'll let everyone know about that afterwards. And your leader company is there to help you develop. And as Pascal was saying, he kind of would love to hear from you guys that what would be of use in Waterford for your community. So next week, if people are around, and feel free to share the link, we will have our financial institutions joining us. So we will hope to have the credit unions, Post Office, AIB, Bank of Ireland, Permanent TSB join us, and they will be talking about their supports, their loans and their products that people can avail of if they are upgrading their own home. So we've talked about the funding on one side. Now we're going to talk about how you match that as well, because it's practical. And then the week after, we will talk about community projects and how we match fund community projects. So thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you joining us. And if you have any questions, as Michael Dean put on the call, we'd love to hear from him. And we appreciate your attention this morning. Have a good day. Thank you.